We live in interesting times for the headlines. FIVOX assured that there have been no signs of volcanic unrest at Mount Pinatubo in the wake of the magnitude 6.1 earthquake that shook central Luzon. Former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden announces he is running for president in 2020. The UN Children's Fund, or UNICEF, said that an estimated 169 million children missed out on the first dose of the measles vaccine between 2010 and 2017, or 21.1 million children a year on average. Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un meet for their first ever summit, vowing to seek closer ties as they look to counter U.S. influence. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. First up, the number of families affected by the magnitude 6.1 earthquake that rocked Zambales, Pampanga, and other parts of Luzon has climbed to 1,203 families, consisting of 4,991 individuals. The affected families are residing in 10 cities and municipalities in central Luzon. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council reported Thursday in its 6 a.m. update. The number of those killed in the tremor remains at 16, the injured at 86, and the missing still at 14. Now, these numbers are still subject to validation according to the NDRRMC. Some 1.16 million pesos worth of assistance to Central Luzon has been provided by the Office of Civil Defense, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the local government units. Meanwhile, FIVOX assured Thursday, April 25, that there have been no signs of volcanic unrest at Mount Pinatubo in the wake of the magnitude 6.1 earthquake that shook central Luzon. The ash and smoke that residents said the active volcano spewed after the quake on April 22 were actually dust clouds caused by rock slides. Now, this was said by the FIVOX in a statement. FIVOX said its monitoring team has not detected any changes in the monitored parameters to indicate volcanic unrest. The agency is monitoring volcanic activity round the clock. Mount Pinatubo is located at the boundaries of Pampanga, Tarlac, and Zambales. Its violent eruption on June 15, 1991 killed more than 800 people and destroyed communities. Over 250,000 individuals were displaced. Now take a look. These dogs, the MMDA, or Metropolitan Manila Development Development Authority K9 police dogs, are involved in the search and rescue operations in the collapsed supermarket in Porac, Pampanga. And they were lauded on social media. Take a look. In a Facebook post, Pet Photography Studio, Pause Click, shared on Wednesday these photos of the heroic police dogs. Its caption, "Salute to these fine senior canines of the MMDA K9 unit for their search and rescue efforts in a 4-story supermarket building in Porac, Pampanga." MMDA K9 unit senior police dogs are Billy, Thunder, and Farah. They were given a salute for their tireless work to search and rescue survivors trapped in the rubble of the collapsed 4-story supermarket after a 6.1 magnitude earthquake. The other canines involved in the operations, namely Ringo, Cody, Chia, Dumbo, Chaplin, and Lucy, were also given recognition. In other news, 3 people were killed after a private chopper crashed in a fish pond in Malolos, Bulacan. Police said Liberato Levi Laos, chairman of the conglomerate Laos Group of Companies, was declared dead on arrival at the Bulacan Medical Center. The pilot was identified as Everett Coronel. The other victim, Wilfran Esteban, died at the hospital. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines said the helicopter was bound for San Fernando, Pampanga, when it crashed into a fish pond in Barangay Anilao in Malolo City at 12:47 p.m. Investigators ruled out weather and overloading as possible cause of the crash, and they said the chopper only had 3 passengers on board. Eyewitnesses, however, said the chopper was billowing black smoke even before it crashed, and that the rotor blades snapped. An investigation into the cause of the incident is still ongoing. Sri Lanka's government acknowledged major lapses over its failure to prevent the horrific Catholic Easter attacks that killed more than 350 people despite prior intelligence warnings. Police have so far arrested scores of people, all Sri Lankans, and security remains heavy, with bomb squads carrying out several controlled explosions of suspected packages on Wednesday. But the government faces anger over revelations that specific warnings about an attack went ignored. Sri Lanka's police chief issued a warning on April 11 that suicide bombings against prominent churches by the local Islamist group National Tawhid Jamaat were possible, citing information from a foreign intelligence agency. CNN reported that Indian intelligence services had passed an unusually specific information in the weeks before the attacks, some of it from an ISIS suspect in their custody. But that information was not shared with the Prime Minister or other top ministers.
It is a major lapse. It is a major lapse in sharing of information, especially intelligence information. As for our shake-up, the President yesterday made a statement saying that there will be certain changes done in the hierarchy, whether it's the military or whether it's in the ministry or is it left to be seen. Well, there was definitely a lapse of intelligence, and the government has, we have to take responsibility because unfortunately, if this the sharing of intelligence information had been given to the right people, I think at least this could have been, whether it was could be avoided or even minimized. I think.
Now, experts say the bombings bear many of the hallmarks of ISIS attacks, and the government has suggested local militants could not have acted alone, but it hasn't yet officially confirmed any ISIS role in the blast. A key suspect in the attacks also remains unaccounted for, NTJ leader Zaran Hashim. He appears to be among 8 people seen in a video released Tuesday by ISIS after it claimed the attacks, seen leading a pledge of allegiance to ISIS chief Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Officials said it was still unclear whether Hashim was among the suicide attackers or had escaped after the blasts. Officials have said they cannot rule out further attacks while suspects remain at large. In all, 9 people are believed to have blown themselves up on Sunday, either during attacks or when police attempted to arrest them. Sri Lankan police sources said that 2 Muslim brothers, son of a wealthy Colombo spice trader, blew themselves up at the Shangri-La and the Cinnamon Grand hotels. Their father is now in custody. Now, most of the attackers were well educated and came from middle or upper middle class families, according to the minister. One of the attackers, named as Abdul Latif Jamil Mohammed, had even spent time studying in the UK.
Some of the suicide bombers, most of them are well educated and come from maybe middle or upper middle class. So they are financially quite independent and quite, their families are quite stable financially. So that is a worrying factor in this, because some of them have, I think, studied in various other countries.
Now, for years, Sri Lanka's Muslim community warned authorities about a firebrand cleric. Now it seems Zaran Hashim may have played a key role in one of the worst attacks in Sri Lanka's history. Sri Lanka's government has accused Hashim indirectly, saying the Islamist group he was believed to lead, the National Tawhid Jamaat, carried out these attacks. Now, Sri Lanka's Catholic churches suspended all public services over security fears as thousands of troops joined the hunt for suspects in the deadly Easter bombings that killed nearly 360 people. Security has already been stepped up at churches across the country, according to government officials. Overnight, security forces using newly granted powers under the country's state of emergency arrested 16 more suspects in connection with the attacks. Police have so far arrested 75 people, but tensions remain high with several suspects unaccounted for. Authorities said the army had increased its deployment by 1,300 to 6,300 overnight, with the Navy and Air Force also deploying 2,000 more personnel. Authorities also announced a ban on drone flights and suspended licenses issued to commercial operators with immediate effect. Welcome back. Former Vice President Joe Biden formally joined the crowded Democratic presidential contest on Thursday, betting that his working class appeal and ties to Barack Obama's presidency will help him overcome questions about his place in today's increasingly liberal Democratic Party. The 76-year-old Biden is up against 19 other hopefuls, and that includes Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders. Biden is the most experienced of the many Democratic candidates. A six-term senator, he served as President Barack Obama's deputy for 2 terms and ran twice unsuccessfully for president in 1988 and 2008. After the death of his son Beau from cancer, Biden passed on a presidential campaign in 2016. Complicating matters, the last week of waiting have been clouded by revelations from multiple women accusing Biden of touching them inappropriately or making them feel uncomfortable with his affection. Biden, an old-school politician who acknowledges his quick to offer hugs and shoulder rubs as he forges connections with voters, has not outright apologized for his behavior, but he pledged earlier this month to be more mindful about society's changing boundaries. He remains atop most recent polls. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowed to seek closer ties as they met face-to-face for the first time. At their opening remarks, the Russian and North Korean leaders referred to their two countries' long history of ties, and President Putin said he wanted to help calm Korean tensions. Take a look.
Уверен, что и ваш визит сегодня в Россию послужит делу развития двухсторонних отношений и поможет нам лучше понять, какими путями мы можем урегулировать ситуацию на Корейском полуострове, что можем сделать вместе, что Россия может сделать для того, чтобы поддержать те процессы позитивные, которые сейчас происходят. Ну и, конечно, в двухстороннем плане нам очень многое нужно сделать для развития торгово-экономических связей.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he hopes to, quote, discuss issues of resolving the situation on the Korean Peninsula and developing the two countries' relations. Analysts say that might include trade. China is North Korea's only trading partner, and the country could benefit by having others like Russia, but the international sanctions, the penalties on North Korea's economy could also factor in. Experts say Chairman Kim can be looking for Russian support in getting some of those sanctions removed. Kim met U.S. President Trump for their second ever summit in February, and that summit ended without a deal. Russia has provided some $25 million in food aid to North Korea in recent years, according to the Kremlin. Since March of 2018, the formerly reclusive North Korean leader has held 4 meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping, 3 with South Korea's Moon Jae-in, 2 with President Trump, and 1 with Vietnam's president. Meanwhile, after the talks, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that North Korea needs security guarantees and that denuclearization could only be achieved through international law. Take a look.
Корейской Народно-Демократической Республике нужны гарантии своей безопасности, сохранения суверенитета. Но вот какие это могут быть гарантии, кроме международно-правовых?
Now, President Putin said he would discuss his talks with Kim with Washington. He said there are no secrets here, no conspiracies. Chairman Kim himself asked us to inform the American side of our position. He said Russia's interests coincide with those of Washington in that both countries are for complete denuclearization.
Какие это могут быть гарантии, кроме международно-правовых?
Britain's Prince William paid tribute to Australian and New Zealand troops on Thursday at an emotional Anzac Day ceremony 6 weeks after the Christchurch Mosque's massacre. The Prince in New Zealand to meet survivors of the March 15 shooting in which 50 people were killed laid a wreath at the annual service honoring those who have served in the two countries' armed forces. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern told an Anzac Day dawn service the March 15 massacre showed there's still much division to overcome in the world and called for a recommitment to the principles of freedom, democracy, and peace that the country had fought for. New Zealand last week lowered its terror threat level from high to medium, meaning another attack was judged feasible rather than very likely. Anzac Day marks the April 25, 1915 landing of Australian and New Zealand troops at Gallipoli on the Turkish peninsula in an ill-fated World War I campaign against the German-backed Ottoman forces. More than 10,000 Australian and New Zealand servicemen died in the campaign, and while it failed in its military objectives, it gave rise to commemorations of the courage and close friendship that bind the two countries.
The Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister.
And just more than a month after a more powerful storm struck the port city of Beira and killed hundreds of people, another tropical cyclone is expected to make landfall on Mozambique's coast on Thursday local time. Weather forecasters say Cyclone Kenneth will bring heavy rainfall, strong winds and waves of several meters to the southern African nation, which is still reeling from the effects of Cyclone Idai. Cyclone Kenneth struck the island nation of Comoros before it plowed into Mozambique's northern coast. The UN warned that the latest storm could trigger flash flooding and landslides in Mozambique's far north, and the government closed dozens of schools likely to be in the storm's path. National airline LAM has suspended flights between the capital Maputo and Pemba on the northeast coast because of Cyclone Kenneth. More than 1,000 people were reported killed by Cyclone Idai in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Now, that storm lashed Beira with wind speeds of up to 170 kilometers per hour on March 14, and heavy rains prompted flooding that submerged entire villages. Now, 1 month after Cyclone Idai devastated parts of Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, appealed to the international community to help some 1.6 million children still reeling from its impact. Priscilla Chulu reports from South Africa.
Cyclone Idai hit the countries of Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique a month ago, and the region is still reeling from the aftermath. Homes were lost, crops destroyed, and many fell prey to the flood. But those who survived the storm's initial blows face another set of obstacles. The most dangerous at the moment, cholera. The outbreak began a month ago. Since then, 1,400 cases have been identified. When battling the spread of cholera, people need access to clean water, but But in this terrain, the future is looking bleak.
In the cyclone, a lot of the infrastructure was damaged, so people have limited access to clean water and sanitation, and the vaccine, this oral cholera vaccine, will help protect them from cholera.
To stem the flow of the disease, health workers began a cholera vaccination program in the town of Beira in Mozambique. With a population of over 500,000, Beira is the fourth largest town in the country. This is where most of the cholera cases have been reported.
Cholera is endemic in this part of Mozambique, so when the cyclone hit, they knew that there was a very high risk of a cholera outbreak, that the population would be extremely vulnerable due to the damage to the water and sanitation systems. So the government of Mozambique put in a request to the International Coordinating Group, the ICG, that has a global stockpile of this vaccine, of oral cholera vaccine, for emergencies.
So far, the country has received 900,000 doses of the oral cholera vaccine.
We also see that in each district, they know their communities, of course, very well, and they have adapted to the fact that this vaccination campaign is for everyone over the age of 1. So you're targeting communities that aren't normally targeted for vaccination, so that includes adult males, and you really have to adapt where you're going to set up vaccination sites, and they've done a fantastic job of ensuring that the teams go where they need to be.
Reporting from South Africa, I'm Priscilla Chulu for Eagle News, and I am one with 25.
The UN Children's Fund, or UNICEF, said that an estimated 169 million children missed out on the first dose of the measles vaccine between 2010 and 2017, or 21.1 million children a year on average. Widening pockets of unvaccinated children have created a pathway to the measles outbreaks, hitting several countries around the world today. In the first 3 months of 2019, more than 110,000 measles cases were reported worldwide, up nearly 300% from the same period last year. An estimated 110,000 people, most of them children, died from measles in 2017. A 22% increase from the year before. Now, the United States tops the list of high-income countries, with the most children not receiving the first dose of the vaccine between 2010 and 2017 at more than 2.5 million. It is followed by France and the United Kingdom, with over 600,000 and 500,000 unvaccinated infants, respectively, during the same period. Now, 2 doses of the measles vaccine are essential to protect children from the disease. However, due to lack of access, poor health systems, complacency, and in some cases, fear or skepticism about vaccines, the global average of the first dose of the measles vaccine was reported at 85% in 2017, a figure that has remained relatively constant over the last decade despite population growth. The World Health Organization recommends a threshold of 95% immunization coverage to achieve so-called herd immunity. The government of Malawi, in coordination with the World Health Organization, launched the world's first malaria vaccine in a landmark pilot program. The country is the first of 3 in Africa in which the vaccine, known as RTS-S, will be made available to children up to 2 years of age. Ghana and Kenya will introduce the vaccine in the coming weeks. In clinical trials, the vaccine was found to prevent approximately 4 in 10 malaria cases, including 3 in 10 cases of life-threatening severe malaria.
As much of a milestone as it is an imperfect vaccine against a complex disease. But it's also a vaccine that has significant potential to save lives and deliver on the health aspirations that we have for all children around the world. The anticipation is that there will be about 360,000 children each year who will be vaccinated across the 3 countries.
The question could be, well, why not wait until we have something better? Well, and the answer to that is because we know we're dealing with a very, very hard organism. And that's why I mentioned before this is the first vaccine against a human malaria parasite. Parasites are really complex organisms, much more so than a virus or a bacteria. And that's why it has taken 30 years to develop this first vaccine. Always remember when 30 years ago we, as many others, were developing insecticide-treated bed nets, they were met with similar skepticism. Oh, they only prevented 40% of clinical malaria. Oddly enough, the same level that this vaccine provides. And insecticide-treated bed nets were met with significant skepticism, but data showed that they could actually have a massive impact on mortality. And as such, they've become the cornerstone, the backbone of our malaria control efforts that have resulted in over 7 million deaths being averted.
Malaria is a huge public health problem in Malawi. We see about 6 million cases each year, and we register close to 3,000 deaths each year. And per day, I would say we register about 8 deaths every day. So it's quite a huge problem, public health problem in Malawi, and that's why this malaria vaccine, which has potential to prevent some cases and also save some lives, as a country, were quite positive about it, and they were happy that we're introducing this vaccine.
The malaria vaccine pilot aims to reach about 360,000 children per year across the 3 countries. Ministries of Health will determine where the vaccine will be given. They will focus on areas with moderate to high malaria transmission, where the vaccine can have the greatest impact. And the Good Works in Canada is non-stop, continuing their mission to help others in many different ways. In Edmonton, the Church of Christ held a blood donation drive. To tell us more about it, here is our EBC correspondent, Thomas I. Likeness.
As the summer season approaches, the demand for blood increases. But blood donations tend to drop off as people go on vacation. To counter this, Canadian Blood Services has partnered with a number of companies, groups, and organizations to head off the shortage. One organization whose members rolled up their sleeves is the Church of Christ, or Iglesia Ni Cristo. At a recent blood drive in Edmonton, church members filed into a clinic to give the gift of life. Church spokesman Brother Paquito Abanez says helping out is a duty of all members.
It is our aim to help people, not only in anything that we could give as part of those who are in need, but more so our chance to show our love for our fellow men and also for our community.
Brother Abanez says their efforts are not just limited to the church community.
Well, no, it goes with everyone. As what was written in the Bible, if there are those who are in need, we're there to be of help. As part of being true Christians, we do give our help to everyone.
The blood collected here today could end up saving the lives of hundreds of people. Not only is the blood needed to treat traumatic injuries, but it's also required in surgeries. And some illnesses are treated with various blood components. Each unit of blood can help up to 3 people, but the shelf life for blood is short. The demand continues, so wherever you are, donate if you can. In Edmonton, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News, I'm 1 with 25.
For business news, this is Cesar Vallejos. A Japanese court granted Carlos Ghosn bail Thursday. This means the former Nissan boss could soon walk out of his Tokyo detention center to prepare his defense against multiple charges of financial misconduct. Former Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn will need court approval to see his wife if he is released under strict new bail conditions, his lawyer revealed on Thursday. Junichiro Hironaka told reporters Ghosn's bail conditions included an approval system to see his wife, Carol. If the court approves it, she will be able to meet him, added Hironaka. The Tokyo District Court set bail at 500 million yen or $44.5 million as the 65-year-old auto sector legend faces 4 charges ranging from concealing part of his salary from shareholders to siphoning off Nissan funds for his personal use. Gon has denied all the allegations against him. President Duterte arrived in Beijing on Wednesday night to attend the second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation from April 25 to 27 at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Duterte arrived at the Beijing International Airport at 7:40 p.m. amid cold, rainy weather. This is Duterte's 4th trip to China since he assumed the presidency in 2016. He was received by Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines, Zhao Jinhua, and Philippine Ambassador to China, Jose Santiago Santa Romana. In an interview with reporters in Beijing, Santa Romana emphasized the importance of Duterte's participation in the forum as part of efforts to enhance economic development.
Actually, for the president, it's an opportunity again to be able to have renew his friendship with President Xi, as well as to be together with the ASEAN members who will be here, and also an opportunity to meet a broader group of. There are more leaders now. Italy is joining for the first time. Switzerland is joining, and then you have the countries of Central Asia, and then you have other countries from Asia that are participating. So for the president, as always, when he goes and participates in this, it's how, again, to advance the Philippine interests, to maximize the economic benefits for the Philippines through and articulate the Philippine perspective.
China launched on Thursday a staunch defense of its Belt and Road Global Infrastructure Project as it opened a summit with a pledge to ease concerns about debt linked to its signature foreign policy. President Xi Jinping's pet project is a reboot of the ancient Silk Road to connect Asia to Europe and Africa through massive investments in maritime, road, and rail projects. The initiative offers to bring much-needed modern infrastructure to developing countries, but the United States has dubbed it a vanity project, and critics warn it is a debt trap favoring Chinese companies. Wang Kunming, a member of China's powerful Politburo, said at the opening of the 3-day Belt and Road Forum in Beijing that there have been some misunderstandings and unfounded rumors about BRI that they hope to clear up. But in a nod to the concerns over loans, Finance Minister Liu Kun said China would release a framework to prevent debt risks, according to state-owned China Securities Journal. The report said the Debt Sustainability Analysis Framework encourages Chinese financial institutions and BIR countries to voluntarily improve debt management levels. The first Filipino-made hybrid electric train went on its test run from the city's Philippine National Railway Station on Wednesday morning amid concerns about aftershocks in the aftermath of Monday's magnitude 6.1 earthquake that shook Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon region. Touted as an efficient solution to the country's traffic woes, it was assembled by the Department of Science and Technology's Metal Industry Research Development Center. The OSTMIRDC hybrid electric train project head engineer Pablo Acuin said the hybrid electric train is considered the first mass transport vehicle of its kind made in this country. He added that in the event of moderate earthquakes, PNR will suspend train operations and check on the condition of the railroad tracks. He explained that the hybrid train is equipped with automatic stop safety features, which will be very helpful should a strong earthquake occur. Around 900 passengers could be accommodated by the hybrid electric train, which is expected to go on its commercial run by May this year. Brent North Sea crude hit a 6-month high above $75 per barrel Thursday on supply concerns that have been worsened by the United States tightening the screw on sanctions hit Iran. Brent for delivery in June jumped to $75.35 per barrel, up 78 cents from Wednesday's close. Oil's other main contract, WTI, won 27 cents to $66.16 per barrel, also a 6-month peak. Traders said Brent was receiving support on Thursday from a halt of Russian oil exports to Poland and Germany via pipeline due to quality concerns. The United States this week said it would end all exemptions for sanctions against Iran, demanding countries halt oil imports from Tehran from May or face punitive action from Washington. Intensifying competition and delays in rolling out 5G equipment for the next generation of mobile phone networks pushed Nokia deeper into the red in the first quarter, the company said Thursday. Net losses more than doubled from the same period last year to hit 446 million euros and compared to a 193 million euros profit in the final 3 months of last year. Chief Executive Rajiv Suri acknowledged that the quarter was weak for the Finnish firm, which is widely seen as trailing China's Huawei and Sweden's Ericsson in the race to supply operators with the equipment needed to build next-generation 5G networks. We expected that it would be, and the outcome has not changed our perspective on the full year, added Suri. 5G revenues are expected to grow sharply, particularly in the second half of the year, driven by our 36 commercial wins to date, he added. Nokia said it delayed booking 200 million euros in revenues it had expected in the first quarter. Nevertheless, sales edged up 2% to 5 billion euros in the 3 months period. Building stronger relationships with ASEAN nations, including the Philippines, Australia Now 2019, a program that celebrates Australian innovation and creativity in Asia, brings Taste of Australia with Adam Liao in Manila at the Greenbelt 3 Park on April 27, 2019. The Australian Embassy in the Philippines organized the festival showcasing culinary culture and the best Australian products available in the Philippines, and highlighted by the talk and cooking demonstration of Adam Liao, Australian TV presenter, author and MasterChef Australia winner. In an exclusive media meet and greet session at the Hilton Manila, Adam Liao said food is the best way to explain a culture.
You may ask what I have to do with explaining Australian culture to the world, but I've always been of the belief that food is the best way to explain a culture, because food doesn't lie. Food is always a very, very accurate representation of what life is like. You can't just say, oh, I eat foie gras every day, or I eat this every day, and pretend that that's what your life is. Your life is reflected in what is actually on your dinner table every day. You look over there, you've got sausage rolls and meat pies, and I believe my eyes don't deceive me, sausage and bread, which is probably the most Australian dish in the entire world. It's eaten at hardware stores and elections and backyard barbecues around the country every weekend. Because food is constant. Everybody, if they're lucky enough to, eats at least one, or probably 3 meals a day. And what comprises those 3 meals tells you a lot about politics, it tells you about geography, it tells you about climate, it tells you about lifestyle, it tells you about how much time people have in the day, how much money do they have to spend in their pocket when they go to the supermarket, what kind of things are they buying, what sort of things are being produced. And over the course of the next few days I'm going to be cooking a lot of Australian food, because I think that's the best way to explain what life is like in Australia, because the food I'm cooking is not kind of, I guess, classic Australian dishes.
Liao also mentioned the connection between the Filipino and Australian palates.
The connection between the Filipino palate and Australian palate is the focus on home cooking. You know, I'm not a chef. I was on a show called MasterChef, but I'm not a chef. I focus an awful lot on home cooking, and I think that's it's a far more important thing than going out to a restaurant to eat, because for all the reasons I said before, it explains a lot about who you are and where you come from. If you ask any Filipino person, that I know anyway, about what food makes them tick and what food explains their history and their lifestyle, it's always the family food, you know, the things that are bowls sitting on the table that people are sharing together, and that's really what Australians think about food as well. People might tell you about a restaurant they went to once that they enjoyed, but we have some cuisines like, you know, French cuisine or even American cuisine. A lot of that tends to focus a lot on things that you eat out. You know, where's the best place to get hamburgers or the best restaurant in Paris. But I guess the importance that people in the Philippines put on family and family food is also what people in Australia put an emphasis on when it comes to food as well.
A writer and columnist for 9 Fairfax Sunday Life, Adam Liao's favorite dish from the Philippine cuisine is Bicol Express. He picked it because Australians love to cook food that's easy. I guess the one thing that's quite difficult to find in Australia is the shrimp paste. Bicol Express is a type of food that Australians like. There's a little bit heat to it. It could be hot or not so hot depending on the creaminess of the coconut and shrimp paste. I think it is a very underrated dish, Liao said. Andy Liao encouraged people to use food as a tool.
It can capture memories for you. It can be convenient for you. Food is a tool in many respects. A tool to keep you alive for sure, but also to make your life a little bit easier, a little bit more pleasant. And so, I guess if you're a food entrepreneur in the Philippines and you wanted to make something successful, whether it was a concept or a product or whatever it happens to be, the most important thing in that equation is the people who you want to be the recipients of it. I guess the customers, trying to understand what they need in life. When I'm writing a recipe, for example, I don't think about, you know, the world is full of recipes. There are millions and millions of recipes out there. You can, if you want to learn how to cook something, you don't even have to type anything. You can just say it into your phone and it'll tell you how to cook it. So when I'm writing a recipe, I write maybe 700 recipes a year, which is a lot of recipes. But I don't write them just, oh, here's a new idea, something that might be tasty. I write it because I'll think first about, what do people want the recipe to do? Is it going to be something that they're familiar with that they can do in less time? Or can I make it cheaper for them? Or can I make it easier for them? You know, that's the kind of innovation that I find exciting. You know, something that helps people. And if you can use food as a tool to help people, whether that's through innovation or entrepreneurship or even just writing a nice recipe that someone's going to cook for dinner that night, that's a really good thing.
Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, Steve Robinson, talked about the Philippines-Australia diplomatic relationship that is coming up to its 75th anniversary.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've heard me round town over the last few months, you will have heard me say that Australia's relationship with the Philippines is broad and deep. And that's because we're coming up to the 75th anniversary of our diplomatic relationship. But one little known fact that I'd like to share with you this afternoon is that Australia's relationship with the Philippines goes back much, much further than that. And would you believe that the linkage between the Philippines and Australia comes down to food? And it comes down to food back in the 1800s, when sugar and coffee from the Philippines was exported down to Australia and sold in Queensland and New South Wales in the early 1800s. So that's a pretty outstanding fact that you just want to file away. Our relationship goes back many years indeed. And so it's a terrific thing to be here with you this afternoon because we're celebrating a common love of food. And as you can see, I do enjoy food. And as I know that my Filipino friends do as well. And one of the things I've found as I've been here over recent months is that Filipinos love food. And when I go to meetings, whether it be here in the city or out in a province, one of the first things that I'm asked as I go into the meeting is, have you eaten yet? answer is generally, it doesn't matter. Here comes a whole treat of Filipino cuisine for you to sample and taste. So that has been absolutely wonderful.
Aside from the outdoor festival at Greenbelt 3 Park on April 27, young Filipino chefs will also compete at the Taste of Australia Cook-Off with Adam Liao as one of the judges. The festival also features an outdoor market where visitors can shop and sample Australian food and drinks with a chance to win Australian products and to be capped off by a free concert featuring Knights of Rizal. And that's it for Business News. This is Cesar Vallejos. I'm one with 25.
In the NBA, Damian Lillard sank a three-pointer on the buzzer to cap a 50-point display as the Portland Trail Blazers completed a late fight back to send Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder crushing out of the NBA playoffs. Needing a win to keep the best-of-7 series alive, Oklahoma City appeared to be on their way to forcing a Game 6 after overturning a 9-point deficit at the end of the third period to open up a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. But a sensational burst of scoring hauled the Blazers back within striking distance as their home fans at the Moda Center roared them on. Lillard leveled the score at 115 with a driving layup, and when Westbrook subsequently fluffed a chance to restore Oklahoma City's lead with 18.3 seconds left, Portland ace Lillard was left with a chance to grab the win. The 28-year-old point guard took his time, eating up the final few seconds before sinking a three-pointer from long range to seal a 118-115 win and a 4-1 series victory. Portland will face either Denver or San Antonio in the next round. The Nuggets took a 3-2 lead in their series after a 108-90 win earlier on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Lou Williams exploded off the bench for 33 points as the Los Angeles Clippers upset the top-seeded Golden State Warriors 129-121 to keep their NBA playoff series alive on Wednesday. Williams finished with 4 rebounds and 10 assists on a night when the Clippers' strength in depth thwarted a 45-point display from Kevin Durant to frustrate the Warriors' hopes of wrapping up a series victory. Williams made 12 of 19 attempts from the field, while Montreal Harrell delivered a huge performance off the bench as well, shooting 11 of 14 to finish with 24 points. Point guard Patrick Beverley had 14 points as the Clippers pulled the series back to 3-2 before Game 6 in Los Angeles on Friday. The Warriors had earlier threatened to cut loose in a high-scoring first quarter, piling on 41 points. But Clippers were able to exploit an even Warriors defense display to remain within striking distance, restricting the reigning NBA champions to a 4-point lead heading into the second quarter. The visitors outscored the Warriors 34-22 to take a 71-63 halftime lead, and from that point, Golden State were chasing the game. Meanwhile, the Toronto Raptors beat the Orlando Magic 115-96 behind a 27-point game from Kawhi Leonard. Pascal Siakam adds 24 points and Kyle Lowry chips in 14 points. In the third quarter, Kawhi makes an incredible one-handed catch and finishes with a dunk. Here's EBC Sports correspondent Zarita Dimaculangan for the report.
It's Game 2 of the first round of the Eastern Conference Finals where the Toronto Raptors play the Orlando Magic here at the Scotiabank Arena.
With the Magic taking a surprising 1-0 series lead, many marked Game 2 as a must-win for the Raptors. The squad delivered with the help of their two All-Stars, Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry, dominating the Magic 111-82. Lowry was able to assist his team, putting up 22 points and shot 61% from the field. Alongside Lowry, Leonard contributed to 37 points in his 33 minutes of play. In addition to their dominating efforts offensively, the Raptors were able to hold it down on the other end of the court.
It wasn't flipping the switch, it was more just being locked in on every coverage, everything we wanted to do, just being on the same page and communication.
It was that team cohesion that allowed the Raptors to neutralize DJ Augustine to just 9 points compared to his 25-point performance in Game 1.
With tonight's win over the Magic, Toronto fans can now breathe a sigh of relief knowing that their team has evened the series as they head down to the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. From the Scotiabank Arena, I'm Zarita Dimaculangan, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Zarita. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez, and I'm 1 with 25.
And moviegoers in Canada praise Guerrero at a Vancouver screening. Kenny Aquino reports.
Here at the Justice Institute of British Columbia, Guerrero, the first full-length film produced exclusively by EBC Films, was received with excitement. Excitement was in the air at the JIBC for the showing of EBC film Guerrero. EBC's award-winning full-length film impressed quite a number of moviegoers here in Vancouver.
I don't understand Tagalog very well, but the subtitles helped a great deal, and it was a very light-hearted look at a kind of a tragic story. It was very interesting. It was a lot of twists and turns. You wouldn't expect it to end the way it did, and it was good.
I enjoyed it because they have lots of detail and lots of emotion.
The audience pointed out how different Guerrero is from mainstream movies.
I think it's a big jump from the usual Filipino movies. It looked very modern, and it was fun to watch.
I think it was really great performance by all the actors, and just the overall theme of hope. And even though the good things and the bad things happen, like I love how he found, just God, and it was the hope. He refound his hope to live through the hard times of his life. Yeah.
INC Minister Brother Felmar Sereno said the film is unique in so many ways and recommended Guerrero to everyone.
What I really appreciate about the movie is its wholesome message, about bond of family, particularly the bond of the brothers, right? Because it was centered around the brothers. And in conclusion, how we rise above challenges, relying on the one. God is there, and we can call to Him for help, and rely on Him and trust on Him to get us back up and to keep on going. So a wonderful film, highly recommended to everybody and anybody.
From Vancouver, Canada, my name is Kenny Aquino, always one with 25.
Thank you, Kenny, and that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. I too am one with 25. Good night.